Stop. Don't buy a house. And I know that might sound crazy coming from a real estate agent, but I don't want you to regret buying a house just because all your friends are doing it, because it's trending on social media. Your parents are saying that you should buy it. Today's video, we're going to go through 10 reasons why you shouldn't buy a house, and stick around to the end. We have an 11th bonus reason why you shouldn't buy a house. But if you do buy a house, how you can actually use that house to help you become financially free through investing in real estate. So let's dive in. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Logan Rhea, Realtor here in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm with the Pro20Five Group. We love helping clients move, buy, sell, or invest. If that's you thinking about moving here, hit us up below. Our info is down there, and we'll get you connected so that you can make a smooth move to Nashville, Tennessee. Otherwise, let's dive into the video. So the first reason you wouldn't want to buy is if you know that you're not going to be in the city that you're looking to live in for the next 2 or 3 years. So if you have a job maybe that is causing you to relocate, renting might be a better option for you. If you know that your job is going to allow you to stay there longer, then obviously buying a house might be more aligned with your goals. But if you end up buying and then you know you have to move, then you're going to sell it and it's only built up a little bit of equity in 1 or 2 years. And so you could potentially sell it at a loss or only make a couple $1,000s, or you could rent it out. But did you buy it with the intention of renting it out and being a landlord and being an investor? It can make you money over time, but once again, if you're traveling your full-time job, maybe that's not something you want to do right now. So if you're not planning on staying at your house for more than 3 to 5 years, I would recommend maybe consider renting. If you wanted to rent it out and build your rental portfolio, then that could be a good option. But that's the number one reason why I would not recommend buying a house, is if you know you're not going to live in that city for the next 2 to 3 years. Reason number 2 is that you don't want to buy under pressure. And I know we love hearing our friends and family encourage us, give us advice, but if you are not in a position, or if you have not done the research to proactively, strategically move forward with a plan to get a property and you just want to jump into it, that is a red flag, and I would say you are not in a position to buy. A lot of friends and families like, oh, you're still renting, really? But you need to have a strong identity in who you are, not let others influence you. Something that I always encourage with is you are the captain of your ship. Don't let others row your boat. My dad would always tell me that. So you need to make sure that you're in a position holistically to where you know that you want to buy, why you want to buy, and where you would want to be. You shouldn't just be buying just because others are encouraging you to, or pressuring you, or making you regret, you're going to lose money over time because you're throwing away money for rent. Although you should buy, in my opinion, when you are ready, but you need to take time to be proactive. And I would highly recommend meeting with a real estate agent, meeting with a lender, coming up with a game plan. For my clients, we always do a strategy session where we go through what's your motivation, your time frame, your goals, everything, so that way we can move proactively with the plan we came up with, instead of reacting to the market, reacting to a good deal, and then jumping into something and then regretting it because we have buyer's remorse because we actually weren't ready. So you want to come up with a game plan, make sure that you are being proactive with that. So that's reason number 2, is don't let others pressure you to buy a property. Reason number 3 is that you don't want your house mortgage payment to exceed anywhere from 25 to 35% of your take-home pay. If it does, let's just say you buy a property, you make $8,000 a month, and your mortgage is $4,000. That's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and any HOAs potentially. I mean, let's just say if you're in that situation and that's half of your take-home pay, that is a very scary situation to be in. What if you have an emergency? That would be considered being house poor. Can you live off of $4,000 while you have a $4,000 monthly mortgage payment? So you want to shoot for anywhere is recommended 25 to 35%. I would say conservatively 25%. So in that example, if you're at $8,000 take-home pay per month, then you want to shoot around $2,000 a month. That way you still have $6,000 that you can live off of, still build your emergency fund and all those other things. But you don't want to be in a situation where if something wrong with the house or an emergency and now you have no extra income to pay for those things, and then you have to end up selling it because you can't make your mortgage payments because it's very high. So a good range to aim for is 25 to 35%. 25 very conservatively is what I would recommend of your take-home pay. And I would also account for that it was after, so that would not be gross, that would be net. So after you've paid for all your taxes and anything else, you want to be in that 25% range. So that's reason number 3. And when would it make sense to buy? It's when you could have an affordable payment. So that way you can hit your financial goals. Speaking of financial goals, reason number 4 is you want to make sure to have 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund. This is going off of Dave Ramsey and his baby steps, but ideally you have 3 to 6 months built up an emergency fund so that you buy the house and you don't spend all of your savings on your closing costs and the title, the appraisal, the inspection, and maybe it's a fixer-upper, or maybe there's some renovations you need to do, and then maybe if something breaks, there's some maintenance expenses, and then like you're out of money because you didn't have any savings. So you don't want to be in a position where you're doing that. So speaking of closing costs, and if you're interested in what it takes to buy a house and knowing kind of the breakdown of your out-of-pocket expenses, taxes, insurance, closing costs, your down payment, home maintenance, anything else like that, any realtor fees, I have a document that explains that. So just say expenses below, I'll send you an actual document, a form to fill out to where you can get that out-of-pocket buyer expense document. But yeah, so that's reason number 4. You want to make sure to build up 3 to 6 month reserve of your take-home pay. So that way you lost your job, you have 3 to 6 months to look for another job, but also that way you're not irresponsible and in a position to where you can't afford your mortgage payment and then you have to foreclose and now you're homeless. So that would be bad. We're not going to make that happen. That's why you're watching this video. You're wise, you're smart. So build up the 3 to 6 month emergency fund. I would also recommend build up a down payment, like a house down payment, and maybe have some extra funds in case you need to pay for closing costs, which are usually 2 to 3% of the loan, and then any other potential maintenance or renovations that you might need for the property. If you have that built up 3 to 6 months and an extra reserve for your down payment, then you would be in a position to buy. Reason number 5 is if you're waiting for the housing market to appreciate quickly. You wouldn't want to be in a position to where, we can buy and then the house will go up in value by $10,000, $20,000 this year. It could, it might, it probably will. It's looking at history, depending on where you're buying. However, also sometimes things course correct. We know over time real estate goes up, but sometimes due to inflation, due to rates, things slowing down, due to it maybe being more of a buyer's market because there's more inventory and there's higher interest rates, that could cause prices to slow down and then your house won't appreciate as fast. So you never want to be in a position where you're buying, hoping that it'll appreciate and then build you money and then you can sell it and then make that quick 20, 30 grand, 40 grand that year. Now, if you want to stay there for the next 3 to 5 years, that's a much better time frame to when you would want to buy, and then you could definitely rely on appreciation, but that would not be my recommendation as your only reason, knowing that it could appreciate quickly. It's just not realistic. It's not wise. Houses appreciate over time. You need to have a long-term outlook on this. So 3 to 5 years minimum is my recommendation. Reason number 6 is if you don't have a stable job. Being a homeowner is not for everyone right away. It can be expensive. Things break. If you rent, you get someone else to pay for it. Now, that could be negative because they might take a while and they're not doing it the way you would want. However, if you don't have a stable job and you buy the house and then you lose your job, then you might have to sell the house. You might have to sell at a loss. If you buy and then lose your job within a couple months, that would not be good. You want to make sure you're in a stable spot financially, but where you have job security. That's also why you want your emergency fund, like I said earlier. But if you don't have a stable job, might not be the wisest thing for you to buy right now. And that's okay. It might also be hard for you to get approved if you don't have a stable income. But if you do have a stable job, you do have a foundation, you know that you're in a spot to where you can continue to make those payments, then owning a property and paying that mortgage over time could be a really good strategy for you. Side note, if you want to know how you could potentially buy a property and then use that as an ability to make money as an investment, that will be something called house hacking. So hit me up in the comments below, say house hacking, and I can actually send you a guide on how to house hack and get your first property or the property you're living at to make you money so that you're not even paying a mortgage. The tenants and the renters that are staying with you are. Obviously, I love investing, so that's for another video, but type in house hacking in the comments below and we'll send that to you. Reason number 7 is when you are buying on emotions. And this is a lot of times when you just walk into the house, it just feels right. I love the location. Like, we got to make it happen. And then you start looking at it and it's actually $50K over your budget. And that's going to leave you 35% over your take home pay. And now you potentially could be house poor. I've seen clients before just go in there and decide, then they sleep on it. My dad always said, sleep on the big decision, biggest purchase of your life. And they realize, hey, this actually isn't aligned with your goals. One of the other reasons you want to hire a real estate agent is they can help remind you and point you back to, hey, here's why you're buying. Here's what you're committed to. Here's what you said was important to you. And let's make sure that you're aligned with your goals so that once again, we can move with wisdom and make a wise decision, not just a decision based off of emotion because it feels right. So that would be something you want to consider. When it makes sense to buy is when you're in a financial spot, when you're ready. And I would recommend going to several houses, not just buying the first one. It's exciting and it is super fun and it is almost like touching the dream, tasting it, seeing it come to fruition. But once again, big purchase, biggest one of your life typically. So it's okay to take your time. And that's why having a good agent who's not pressuring you is important, but also making sure that you slow down, sleep on it, that you can be aware. You might have to move quickly, but you don't want to make a rash decision. You can move quickly and efficiently if there's multiple offers, but that's why you do a buyer consultation beforehand. You come up with a game plan. If it fits 80% of your goals, then you should probably consider making an offer. There are several clients of mine that have tried to move too quickly, then have slowed down, thought about it, and actually said, you know what, I need to keep looking. And we found the next house, which met all of their goals even better. So something to consider on why you shouldn't buy. Reason number 8, home maintenance costs. And I mentioned this earlier kind of with your financial assessment with your emergency fund. Typically, you want to have another set of funds for house maintenance costs and capital expenditures. So these are things like the roof. If the HVAC goes out, do you have a home warranty to cover some of those things? Even then, you still have to pay for a couple $100 for a deductible. These are important because if you are renting, you don't have to pay for those things necessarily, but it could take a while to get fixed. But when you are the homeowner and the buck stops with you, if the fridge is broken, the AC is broken, you need a new water heater, you got to get that fixed. So you want to have some reserves for those things, and houses fall apart over time. Just want to be real with you. It's not just you buy the house and everything's perfect. So you need to have a maintenance expenses built in. Now that document I mentioned with the out-of-pocket buyer expenses for a home buyer has a breakdown of house maintenance expenses that I would recommend checking out. But you don't want to do that if you don't have anywhere from 5-10% maybe of your monthly income building up in savings for some of these necessary reserves. It also depends on the house. Maybe your house has a home warranty. Maybe it's new construction and there's some other warranties. But if it's an older house or renovated, there could be issues that are falling apart, or maybe there's a crack in the foundation that needs to be assessed. I mean, there's just all types of things. So I will say lastly, your realtor should have a list of contractors that you can lean into and get from. The best contractors know other really good contractors, and don't just settle for the first one. Get multiple quotes if you need to get those things fixed. All to say, you don't want to buy if you don't have money set aside for these house maintenance expenses. Well, if you do want to buy, just make sure to put some of those in reserves, knowing that there are going to be unexpected things that come up when you own a house, and that's okay, part of home ownership. But then you can turn around and put value back into it, upgrade it if you need to, and then you're in a good financial spot to keep going. Reason number 9 that you wouldn't want to buy a house is if you're trying to time the market. I've seen clients before where they waited, like in 2020, because they were wanting to see if prices were going to drop. Then prices boomed and they ended up buying the same house 2 years later for $100K more. So you can't really time the market. It really depends on what your goals are financially and time frame. Maybe you have to move. So if you have to move, whether it's a buyer's market or a seller's market, just know that there are ways to get around some of your fears. So for instance, if you're trying to get a lower interest rate and it's a higher interest rate, kind of like it is right now in 2025, then what you could do is you could buy down the rate. You could also get a new construction property where the builder has bought down the rate and is offering, 5% locked in. Other things you can do, let's just say it's a seller's market and you feel like the houses are going up in value way too fast. You can get really creative where you look for off-market listings so you're not having to compete with all these other properties. Your agent should know all these techniques and strategies for you, but whether it's a buyer's or seller's market, and if it fits your goals, you can find a way where it makes sense for you to purchase a property without having to sacrifice your fears of competition, overpaying, or having that higher interest rate. Like I said, your agent should know strategies around that. If you're trying to buy in Nashville, hit me up. I'd love to help you out. We've helped a lot of people in buyers markets and sellers markets get creative and find a strategy that is aligned with their goals. When does it make sense? When you have your finances in order, when you've talked to an agent, come up with a strategy, and if you're renting, if you need to get out of your situation, when you want to find the right house for you based off of your goals, not based off of the market speculation. Houses are always going to go up in value over time historically, but it's hard to time the market. And if you buy at a higher interest rate, you can always refinance. We know historically rates go up and down, but I would recommend coming up with a strategy with your agent to be proactive and talk to your lender about that as well. And then get creative and try and find ways to get around the interest rate, or if it's a buyer's or if it's a seller's market, get creative with finding ways to get a property that you're comfortable with that fits your goals. So don't try and time the market. Do what's best for you that's the most aligned with your goals. Reason number 10 is you don't want to buy if you have a lot of high interest debt. So I'm talking about credit cards at 15 to 25% plus, car notes. If you're in a lot of debt, you need to focus on paying off that debt first, building up your emergency fund, and then you can be in a much better spot financially. It's just unwise because if you take on more debt, first of all, you might not even get approved. If you do get approved with all that debt, it's unwise because your debt's going to continue to build compounding interest over time, and you don't want to lose that property because you have to pay all these other debts. When you've paid down your debts, when you've paid off your credit cards or you've gotten it down to really low, then it would be a wiser time to purchase a property. But I would recommend if you have a lot of debt, it's not a wise thing to do. Pay that debt off first and be responsible, because taking over a home mortgage payment and owning a house is a big responsibility, and you don't want to be putting yourself in a spot that's unwise for you in the future, especially if you have family, if you're married. Not a wise decision. All right, and thanks for sticking around to the end. Bonus reason number 11, don't buy a property if you want to travel full time. If you are out on the road with kids, with friends, being nomadic, working, it's probably not a wise thing to own a property. It does require maintenance. It does require you to be there. Now, if you want to use it strategically as an investment property, I've seen a lot of clients and friends of mine based out of Nashville, Tennessee, and they will travel and go on the road, go tour and own their property. But then when they're on tour, rent it out and hire property management. Then they're making cash flow per month when they're on the road. And then when they come back, they block it off. So then they have a place to stay. So that's totally something you could do if you were traveling and then you wanted a place to stay. Owning a home means fixed costs every single month. And if you're not making money necessarily while you're traveling, that's not wise or something that you'd want to take on, especially if you're enjoying seeing the world or maybe taking a break. When it makes sense to buy is if you have a home base that you know you want to be there, or if you want to use it as a rental property and cash flow while you're on the road. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you ever are interested in wanting to buy, sell, invest, or even rent in Nashville, Tennessee, hit us up. Our info is below, and stay tuned. We have more videos coming. So we'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much. Peace.